everyone, and welcome to Adventure on So Many Levels. We're going to play some Dungeons and Dragons.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Yeah, we
Let's
are.
try it.
I am Christiana Ellis, and I am the Dungeon Master. Our players tonight, Jenny Meltzer as Zaleen,
I hope the sandwiches in this place are better than the ones in the fake house where we got all that stuff.
Starla Hutchton as Carolina Swift,
Oh my gosh, there are so many friends.
Paul Fisher as Zinhorn Windborn,
Papa, let's build a snowman.
Mark Guilfoyle as Nedry Shiny Rock,
I wonder if this is all one realm or several different pocket realms.
and James Meltzer as Wutah.
Saxophone, saxophone.
So, when last we left the Pocket Protectors, they had left Onira the Red Dragon's domain on the elemental plane of fire and were traveling by wagon across the cinder wastes, an enormous, flat, hot desert. Pretty unpleasant. Not much fun. But lingering in everybody's mind was a question of Buster, the gray render who you had found and who had imprinted and gained some affection for Zinhorn. And also seemed to have some connection to the mysterious party where Zinhorn had been separated from his parents many, many decades ago. On your way across the cinder wastes, you started to detect the sound of music from a distance. And as you approached, you found an elaborate festival in place. And as the music began to work its way into your minds, you found that some of you were swept away by its charms. Wutah now finds himself in an entirely different party somehow. This party leads to every other kind of party, and now he is in a gothy punk beach cave rave, whereas Zinhorn has made his way through several different layers of this party and has now encountered a dragonborn who looks very much like his father did when Zinhorn was a child. Meanwhile, Carolina, Nedry, and Zaleen had gone through one layer of the party into another, into a fancy manor house garden, briefly dispelling the charms that had, started to envelop them, but are currently trying to figure out how to find the rest of the party and what to do next. And in the meantime, Buster has been separated from all of you entirely, and his whereabouts are currently unknown. So, as we return to our adventurers, we're actually going to rejoin Wutah first. As you are enjoying this party, you have been finding that this is just an incredible time, and it is very easy to just enjoy yourself, be in the moment, stop worrying about all of the other things that might have been a problem for you outside. You're just having a good time.
Yes.
And so there's a moment that happens after a while where you're enjoying yourself, and then there's a little bit of a realization where you recognize that you are, in fact, at a really kickin' party, and it is, in fact, actually really fun. But there's a moment where you feel a little bit of a realization that you had been under a magical charm effect.
Okay.
And that has now seemed to lift. This is still a cool place, but you suddenly realize, oh wait, I was doing something. But as you kind of take a moment realizing this, feeling the difference, and looking around, this party, which still is just as cool a place as it seemed like before. It doesn't look any different.
Right.
You see, kind of off in one corner, a very cool looking gentleman. He's very skinny, has kind of a big head proportionally speaking, but he's dressed in a very dapper sort of suit and looks cool. Like his proportions are unusual, but he pulls it off somehow. And he just looks over at you and kind of nods with a smile as it kind of beckons you over.
The first thing I'm going to do, can I look around and see if there's any other party members in
Yes,
this group?
absolutely.
Yep.
Gonna
All right.
make a perception check.
Perception check. All right. 19.
So, you definitely see a lot of people here in this little this party area that you're in. There's, probably 36 people having fun in this party. But there's also a moment where you sort of recognize, like this isn't where you arrived, right? You came through, and at the same time that you are not immediately sure how you would get back to where you were, you nonetheless have kind of an intuitive sense that it wouldn't be difficult if that's what you really needed to do.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay, so I'm going to make my way over to this dapper looking gentleman with the disproportionate head
Mm-hmm.
and just make my way over and just be like, yay, this is a heck of a party, isn't it?
I'm so glad you think so. I am your host.
Oh,
Welcome.
man, you created all this? You brought all these people together?
I have.
Whew. Dang. Where are we?
You are in a place that has many names. The Eternal Waltz, Solace, the Dinner Party. I call it Jubilee.
Jubilee. I kind of like that. So I remember everything about what I was doing before
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
right?
So,
Okay.
in fact, I think it's not an unreasonable assumption for you to sort of realize that suddenly you feel sort of this magical effect wear off, and then you see him. It doesn't
Sure.
seem unrelated.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm a bit confused as to how I got here because we were in the desert one moment, then one of my friends heard some music and we turned this way, and next thing I knew, I was just like, woo, just in the middle of this party here. And then now here are you. What's going on?
Well, it's true that your arrival here is somewhat unconventional. Usually, the way we do things is to seek out and recruit those we find most in need of what we provide here. However, that should not be understood as suggesting that you are not perfectly welcome here to stay as long as you like.
Well, I mean, I appreciate the offer, but I kind of think I should hook up with my friends again. You don't happen to know where they are, do you?
You arrived with others?
Yeah, there was well, there was like 4 others in my group, plus Buster. I don't really know if you count him, but you know.
Can you briefly describe each of your companions, and I'm sure we can locate them?
Well, I'm kind of new to this whole party, so I really know everybody just by name and not by sight. I know there's Zaylene. I think she's a little drow looking, and we got Carolina. I know she's a bard. She sings. She's got pretty red hair. Whoo, doggy. Then we got Zinhorn. He's a lizard type creature. I think he's a bit of a dragonborn or something. And then there's this other guy. His name's covered up by my Zoom, so I can't see it.
Nedry.
Nedry, that's right. There's Nedry, and he just looks like, man, he's straight out of Back to the Future.
So, as you're describing this, your host here is nodding to himself, and as you finish, he glances over his shoulder, and you realize that, almost hidden by the shadow there, you see this weird little sort of amorphous blob has emerged from the shadow, and it has little arms and little eyes, and it seems to be taking notes on a little like notepad. And he kind of looks over and says, "Did you get all that?" And it just kind of nods. And he says, "Find them and report back. Thank you." And then it just melds back into the shadow again. And he looks and says, "I'm sure we will locate your friends. If they arrived at the same time as you, I'm sure that they will have questions as well. But in the meantime, do you enjoy your current location, or would you like to explore a bit?"
Well, I kind of like this saxophone playing dude. But yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind exploring a little bit, like going backstage or something like that.
Well, I think we usually reserve our backstage to folks who have been with the organization a little bit longer. Newcomers we tend to keep in our inside the velvet rope areas, if you follow me.
Yeah, I totally follow you. But what kind of organization are you talking about?
Well, it is the organization of the Eternal Waltz. The infrastructure that we provide here allows for all of this that you see around you, as well as all of the other layers, to provide anything that any partygoer might ever want. If you enjoy this party now, but then later feel the need for something quieter and calmer, more serene, we have layers like that available. If you want to do any kind of activity you think of, we have layers where that can happen.
Hmm. Wow, that is pretty something. And is this like your home base or do you like travel around?
Well, as it happens, we are in my domain. That domain intersects with other planes in many locations, but it would not be quite correct to say that we move around so much as doors open and close.
Oh, so this is kind of like a little pocket dimension.
Yes, quite. Are you familiar?
Oh, I see. All right, all right. Well, I thought I heard them call themselves the pocket protectors or something. So maybe I don't know, but that's kind of interesting.
The
Um,
pocket protectors, how delightful.
I know, right? That's what I said. Um, okay, listen. Well, that little blobby thing, looking for my friends. Um, Now that you mention it, I do kind of want some a little peace and quiet because I've been on the go for a little bit, and we just had a big fight with a dragon and a nightmare and all this kind of stuff, and it was just a little messy. And me being a peaceful monk, owl type person, I could use a little meditation time. So
Very
if you
well.
don't mind, I mean, this party's great and all, but you got anything a little quieter, like you
I
know,
do not mind at all, and I will accompany you for this transition just to demonstrate that it is something you will be freely able to do of your own volition in the future at any time that you so choose. Let's
okay,
walk. And he starts off towards the cave opening.
all right.
And he says, "One of the things that you will discover as you spend time here is that you will never tire if you do not wish it. Neither will you grow hungry or thirsty unless you choose to enjoy the food or beverages available. And those things can be consumed at any pace, at any rate that you so choose, and you will never feel overfull or beyond your capacity, unless, of course, that would be your preferred condition, which is accommodated here, though certainly selected less frequently." And he's walking you like outside the
Right.
cave and onto the beach. And here in the beach, on the beach, you got the fire spinners, and it's like night, and there's the surf, and you're getting a little ways away from it, but you still actually hear the music. The music is still going. It's just sort of receding into the distance. But you realize that where the music was coming from in this cave, like it would have receded by now, but the music is still kind of coming from everywhere.
Okay.
And as you are walking, you suddenly sort of realize that the sand, which had been giving way, much in the way that sand does, starts to feel firmer under your feet. And then soon you kind of glance down to see that you are now walking on some, well maintained hardwood floors. And as you look up around again, you are in a mountaintop monastery. And
That's
as you emerge through some sliding doors, you see an incredible mountain vista. And there are several people in various locations just kind of sitting calmly. And he says, should this not be to your liking, simply imagine wherever you would like to go, and you will find yourself there.
No, this is actually perfect. This is just what I had in mind.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for your hospitality. I really appreciate it. What is your name? I don't think I got your name.
You may call me the host.
The host. All right. All right, the host. Well, my name is Wuta, and I hope you can let me know when you find my friends.
I will
Uh,
absolutely do so. And he gives you this elaborate, deep bow, and he just says, you are an honored guest. You are welcome to stay as long as you like. And I will alert you when we have located your friends.
all right, that sounds perfect. One more thing before you go. I can leave anytime I want, right?
Of course.
All
Of
right.
course.
I'd like to.
But before you do, consider this place offers anything you could ever need. And you can stay as long as you like.
All right. No harm done, no danger, no. If I want to leave, that's not a problem. I can just go.
Of course, we do not keep people here against their will.
I'd like to insight check that if I could.
Sure. Go ahead and roll insight.
All right. That's just a 12.
Okay. I mean, he seems really sincere, but he is also a very fancy sort, so.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, then thank you very much. I'll just wait on word from my friends, and I'll just be here quietly meditating.
Very good. If you need anything, simply think about it, and it will be provided. And then
Right.
he kind of turns and then strides back, through that doorway. And you're hearing his footsteps on the hardwood floors literally until the moment he is out of sight, at which point they stop.
And is there anybody else in the monastery?
Yeah, there are a couple of people who seem to be in meditations of their own, kind of just off on various little nearby meditation spots.
All right. I will
One of
sit
them
down quietly.
sees you glancing over and just kind of nods.
Oh. All right. I'll just nod back and kind of dumbfounded a little bit. Just sit
Mhm.
down cross-legged and take it all in.
All right, great. So, in the meantime, we're at this elaborate manor house garden party with plates of hors d'oeuvres being carried around by uniformed attendants, lots of people in fancy clothes. And here's the question, Zaleen, Carolina, and Nedry. Does it occur to you to note that your own current attire does not match the circumstances, and how do you feel about that?
I think Carolina would be aware of it, but I don't think it would bother me much.
Hmm.
I mean,
I
what
don't
am I
think
gonna do?
Zaleen, I don't think Zaleen would even notice
Mm-hmm.
that this is a thing because she does have that kind of issue with understanding like social concepts. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nedry's worn the same ragged robe forever. He doesn't really think about fashion so much as the occasionally having to fix a hole.
Actually, what I might do is get Zaleen to dig out that hat from the tower. I want to wear the hat.
I
Fancy
think
hat.
I think as you have that thought, as you are considering making that request of Zaleen, you feel a bit of like a wind swirl around your head, and then you realize you are wearing a hat just like you were thinking of.
Weird.
Where
Do
did
you guys
that come?
see this? Is it just me?
Yeah, that's weird. It looks
It's-
exactly like the hat in the tower, but I did not fish it out.
Hmm.
It doesn't. I'm like lean forward and take a sniff of it and be like, doesn't smell as musty.
Hmm.
So you have a hat now.
I have a hat now. And it's weird because I was just thinking about getting that hat out because, you know, it's a little fancier and this, you know, everybody's dressed a little fancier here, but it just kind
Are
of
they?
showed up.
I believe that you had last time all accepted a wine glass from the attendant who came around, but you had not yet drunk anything from it.
Mm-mm.
I
That-
am not. I know the stories.
No.
No, thank you.
I'm just saying.
I don't know anything.
I think as you glance around, like anytime you make eye contact with like any of the uniformed attendants, they do sort of give you just like an open expression of just like, if you need anything, just say so, and they are at your beck and call, but without they are very good at doing that in an unobtrusive way, right? Like they are staying out of the way unless you need something, at which point they are promptly at your service. Meanwhile, a lot of the other people in this location are, just having various quiet but pleasant conversations amongst themselves. And one woman, this is a tiefling woman with elaborate blue skin. And a gorgeous dress that accompanies it, and she just saunters over and just says, "My goodness, are you newcomers?"
We are just got here.
Oh, delightful, delightful.
I have a few questions. Where is here exactly?
Well, it is the Eternal Waltz, of course.
Now, is that the name of the place or this particular shard or facet? Still trying to determine the geometry.
Hold on right there. I am happy to answer your questions to the extent that I'm able, but the fact that you're asking them makes me think that you probably haven't had a proper orientation. Were you not explained the nature of this place when you were invited?
It sort of wandered in, really.
We
You really have to do some crowd control or
we were
boundaries.
looking for our friends.
Mm-hmm.
They might have
Yes.
been invited.
Well, let me then put you in touch with someone who can help you much better than I can. And I hope once you have resolved any of your questions or needs that you'll return and we can perhaps take a stroll in this lovely setting. Caraway, darling. And then sort of out of there's like a little burst of flower petals that seem to be sort of like floating on the wind. That begin to coalesce into a tiny little dragon about the size of like a duck, but and bright purple in color, and she flies down and lands with a delicate perch on this tiefling woman's finger, and looks down at the rest of you and says, "Oh my! New arrivals, how wonderful!" And this tiefling woman says, "Caraway, these individuals seem to have wandered in rather than being invited, and I thought perhaps you could help them out." And the fairy dragon says, "Yes, of course. All of you, welcome to the Eternal Waltz. You have found the best place that exists. Welcome."
Thank you.
Thank you. I think very like subtly I would take the wine glasses from Zaline and Nedry and just kind of set them down because I mean obviously we're going to be taken somewhere and you know shown around, et cetera, et cetera. Just
Sure.
right.
So the tiefling woman says, So I'll leave you with in Caraway's good care, and then I hope to see you again soon. And so she returns to kind of the rest of the party, whereas the fairy dragon is kind of flitting around, inspecting you, kind of going in fun little circles around, and then occasionally hovering before you, and then just says, my, you did come from an inhospitable place, didn't you? Elemental plane of fire, am I correct?
It's a very good guess, yes.
Oh, well, I hope that you find the climate here a little bit more to your liking.
It is much more pleasant.
Although it does depend on whether the climate is actual or illusory in nature.
No, not really, because we don't feel it. So, I mean, it doesn't matter.
Well, if it's illusory, then we might not notice that we're feeling it.
Well,
Yeah,
as
that's true. That's true.
That's a fascinating conversation. I think that you will find that there are many challenging philosophical concepts which can be explored and investigated in some of the layers here at the party.
Layers. That's
How
much
many
better than
layers are
facets.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've been here my whole life, and that's a bit longer than most mortals live, and I haven't seen them all. It's a lot.
Sounds like it.
So, we have this lovely garden. However, I see that you have not been attuned yet, and so this garden might have been something that you encountered by chance together rather than the party able to select the perfect environment for each of you. Is there a different sort of location that you would like to have this conversation, or do you like it here?
Library.
We were looking for our friends. I don't suppose you'd seen them.
Well, I imagine that you will find a great many friends here. But if you mean others that came in with you, I'm afraid I have not, but we can look.
I think that would be where I would want to go.
Well, that might take a while. As I mentioned, we have so many layers. And if they found that the music just got within them and swept them away to their perfect environment, then it may take a moment to find them. And however, don't fear. It won't be a moment. It won't be too long. It will just be longer than right now, as you see. So we can go someplace to wait while we investigate. You
Sure,
mentioned
where did you
a
have in mind?
library. Oh, yeah, how silly of me. This is highly irregular. The way that we usually do things has such a much more formal and lovely invitation process where introductions take place. Oh, so this is why we like to usually do things this way. But allow me to introduce myself. I am Caraway Daisywing. And who might I have the pleasure of speaking to?
Carolina Swift would be my
Wonderful.
name.
Oh,
Could I-
you can
I'll,
just
I'll
call me
elbow
Nedry.
one of the other two.
Well,
Um,
probably Zaleen because you'd hit Endry in the head.
Right. My name is Zaylee.
Zaleen, lovely.
Thank you.
My name is Finster.
She gives you kind of like a knowing smile, is like, very well, Finster.
And I would hand over a business card for sure. 'Cause that's what I do.
Yeah. So you hand it to her, and like she's tiny, right? So she's holding it up like like a spiral, like a 3-ring binder. Is how she's holding it up, and she says, "Well, oh my goodness, I imagine that you, if you are all experienced with pocket dimensions, are going to find that it's going to be a lot easier to explain or harder. Because it's true, actually, that a lot of people who are completely unfamiliar with the concept just accept how things work a bit sooner. But if you want to get into the mechanics, so to speak, of the magic behind the curtain, so to speak, there are places that you can discuss these things. But for now, Finster, a library Is there a particular library you have in mind, or shall we let the party decide?
Let's let the party decide.
Is this amenable to you, Zaline and Carolina?
Sure.
Sounds fine to me.
Well then, my friend Finster, please lead the way. Imagine what you would like to find, and the party will take you there. We will follow.
I'm going to hook Zaline's arm and kind of whisper, "Do not leave me for any reason."
We have the rope around us. Don't forget.
Yeah, you are
Do
all
we?
still tied
Oh, that's
together
right.
with a rope. Yeah.
Forgot about that. Making extra sure that she does not leave.
Okay. Yeah, Nedry will be kind of curious
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of pick a direction.
Yeah. I think
And-
that as you're sort of looking around, trying to get to that point of like, well, which way could I go? There's a moment where you're just kind of looking down one particular sort of garden path, and you just kind of, oh, that's it. That's the one. You're not sure how you know, but it's almost like you remember it.
Mm.
We'll walk in that
Lead us
direction.
down the garden path.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you are making your way through this garden path, it leads up between some big hedges and almost like a hedge maze where you turn a corner and you realize down that long aisle, it's no longer hedges, it's bookshelves. And as you kind of turn around, you realize, yeah, you are in an enormous library, passing through stacks of bookshelves, and then beyond them, a gorgeous, ornate reading room where there are many people at various little desks reading quietly. And you notice that although you still hear the music in a very muted way here, like it's audible but quieter, calmer, you also realize that sound seems a little bit muffled otherwise here. And Caraway will lean up close to each of you, kind of gathering you a bit closer together, and says, if we want to speak to one another, we will have to stay a bit closer, or else the sound dampening of this library will make it harder to hear each other.
That's a good feature.
But it allows us to have whatever discussion we need to have without worry that we will disturb any of the other people enjoying the library.
Do we still hear the
Okay.
music? Is it still
Yeah.
there?
Yes, yeah,
It was, like, muted, she
it's
said.
quiet. Like it's sort of like hearing someone, like when it's quiet in your room and someone's listening to music in another room. It kind of sounds like that.
Nedry will whip his pen and kind of like he's flicking for water
Mm-hmm.
and cast Mage Hand to reach towards the third shelf
Mm-hmm.
high, and then just pull a random book off the shelf.
Okay, yeah. So here's what I'm going to ask you. What book does Nedry want it to be? He doesn't even have to know what he wanted it to be, but you tell me as the player, what book is it?
I think it would be about, in this moment,
Mhm.
Probably extra dimensional navigation.
Okay, like, and I think that you pull down a book, and as you examine the cover, there's a moment where it looks almost like it might have been in another language, and yet then as you kind of blink and look again, it is actually in Gnomish, and it has a little linked, like a circle of linked circles on the cover, and a title that says "Not Just Portals."
With the Mage Hand, he'll kind of float it over so it's standing in front of him like it's on a lectern, and just start paging through the book.
I mean, it has writing in it, and at least at the cursory glance, it seems to be a real book with real information in it.
The world has kind of forgotten he's reading.
Yeah. Go ahead and make a wisdom saving throw for me.
Sure. Is this magical?
Yeah.
16.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that this book, it is so uncanny that this is exactly the book that you like. The idea that this library might just well have any book you could ever think of. Books that haven't been written yet. Books that could have been written in another reality. Books written by another language translated for you. Who knows what kind of wonder of knowledge that you could find here, and it's so comfortable too. I mean, look, there's a very comfortable chair, gnome size, just for you, right there.
Yep, he'll kind of wander distracted with the book floating into him in front of him. Kind of sit down, start reading.
Not tied to us, he won't. I'm not going over there.
How far
Well,
away is
so
it?
it's. I mean, it's. I
It's
think-
like 50 feet of rope.
Yeah, well, no, I think what you'll find is that you will bump up against the end of the rope. It's not that far, but you were basically moving to go that way, and then so when you feel a little bit of the tug, what I would say is you tell me how Nedry reacts to that.
Probably looks a bit surprised, sees the rope is tied around his waist, and starts to untie it.
No. What are you doing? We have to stay together.
Caraway says, "This is something that does often happen here. I would apologize, but of course it is the whole point of what we do here. If it is not already clear to you, the eternal waltz is perfection, happiness, celebration for anyone and everyone. Whatever you want is here for you. Welcome."
What if I just want my friends?
Well, as I mentioned, we have workers looking for them right now, and we will absolutely notify you as soon as we have found them. Please, could you? So let me briefly retcon that you told her who you were looking for.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
we'll say that happened. I didn't mean to imply that she knows already. So, and she says, but in the meantime, if you have questions, I would be happy to answer them. But here's what I can also offer. Each of you, just as you see your gnome friend here, so excited to be in this library, I am certain we have the place that would be perfect for each of you as well. And I promise we will absolutely notify you as soon as we have located all of your friends, and we can bring you all together for a communication and a conversation, whatever you would like, as soon as that is possible. And but would you like, in the meantime, to seek out your own tailored experience?
I'm okay. Thank you.
Very well, that is
I'm-
allowed.
The only thing that I want is to be with Carolina, so I'm good right where I am.
We've already been separated from 2, 3, I guess if you count Buster, of our companions. So I would prefer not to lose anymore.
I think as you say that, you kind of feel the rope go slack, and you realize that Nedry has untied himself and has just gone over to the chair, and he's just over there. You see him, but yeah, but he is no longer tied to you. Caraway sees you worrying. He's like, "Don't worry, he's quite safe, I assure you, and as are you. Because you came here unfamiliar and did not go through the orientation process, I understand that you might be a little bit concerned, but please let me do whatever I can to set your fears at ease. You are in a place of safety and of joy and of rest and relaxation."
I would like to make an insight check.
All right. Go ahead.
Insight, where are you? Why isn't it loaded? 15.
15. Uh, as far as you can tell, she seems to mean it. I mean, she's got a very sort of practiced, joyful personality here. You don't really see any cracks in it.
Well, we've been a bunch of different places, and I don't like. None of them have. It's always terrible.
Well,
Even when it's pretty, it's always terrible.
let me go so far as to say that that is the point of the Eternal Waltz. The world, the planes outside, they are terrible. You're right. And I understand that coming from one of those terrible places, it has trained you to be fearful and paranoid. I understand all of that. But that is the entire point of the Eternal Waltz. It is a respite from the cruelty of the world.
Mm.
I'm
Can
going to
people
go and
leave?
sit on the floor by Nedry's chair and just.
Zaleen
stuff.
asks if people can leave, and she says,
Mhm.
absolutely, we do not keep people here against their will. However, often people choose to stay.
For how long can they stay here?
As
Forever?
long
Because
as they
it's
like.
eternal?
Yes, absolutely.
What happens to their bodies?
As long as you are here in the party, you will never tire. You will never have need of anything that is not provided for you.
Um,
I want to like tap Nedry on his leg, distracting him from his reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does any of this sound familiar to you?
These are amazing. I never really thought about the theory in this particular angle before. And really, it requires you to basically understand that everything you understand is not exactly linear. It's more of a parallelogram, sort of. It's hard to put into words, especially because they're linear.
um, I would like to start walking towards where Carolina and Nedry are, but as I do, I want to scan the library and these other people
Mhm.
and do Eyes of the Grave.
Okay. Okay.
That allows me to see like undead up to 60 feet as long as they're not protected from
Sure.
divination magic.
Yeah. Is it just undead?
Yeah, just undead.
Okay. You do not see any undead.
Okay.
So I think Caraway says, so is there anything that I can get you to help you be more comfortable? I assure you, you are safe, but I understand that you have a history which has led you to not be entirely trustful of something that appears to be too good to be true, and I assure you, there is nothing that could be as good as this, but this is.
I'm going to need paper, lots of it, and ink, a writing desk too.
She like hovers in close to you and gives you a little raised eyebrow and says, check the drawer to your right.
Kind of hovering the book around so he doesn't have to leave it out of his sight. He'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of tug at the drawer.
Inside that drawer is a ream of high quality spell book capable paper and various inks.
Oh, perfect. This stuff won't even run.
And I lean into Carolina. I'm like, I think we have a problem.
Yeah, I think so.
Makes me sad because I want a library too, but not this bad.
Well, let me just reiterate. Here you can have anything you like. But if, for example, you would prefer to wait with your friends until we have located the rest of you, and if I am coming on too strong in my enthusiasm, please let me know, and I can leave you here for the time being, and then we will come to find you when we have located all of your friends.
Don't you need to know who they are?
So
We did-
I want to
we
retcon
retconned
that you did
Oh,
tell
you-
her already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I had previously said something to imply she knew already, and I wanted to be clear that she didn't magically know. You did have to tell her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Um, you are coming on a little strong, and I think it's because we didn't choose to come here. We weren't invited. And I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, like the things I want, I'm not going to find here right now,
She,
no
she
matter what you say.
Right. She's nodding with understanding, and she says, "This is, of course, why we usually have a process, protocols, if you like, for all of this. But
Mhm.
because I understand what you're saying, will withdraw for now. You are free to stay here or travel as you like. We will know how to find you now that I've spoken with you."
Thank you.
And she kind of just like starts to fly up, and then once again just becomes kind of like a little flurry of flower petals in the air that just kind of fades away.
That was very pretty.
Yeah. I feel like I was rude, but also like it's true.
Well, I mean, not everyone appreciates honesty.
Oh, okay.
Kind of glance at Nedry. So I think our friend here is otherwise occupied, but doesn't this remind you a lot about what Zinhorn would talk about when he'd talk about his parents?
Yes.
He said he was in a place that was just like a party all the
Yes.
time.
I mean, but also when I thought about that, I also thought about those creepy dead hands that he told us about when he had that encounter when they went to the place where Buster came from. And I scanned through here and I did not see any undead, like any signs of the undead or anything. So I don't know if maybe that's the core of this place or if that was just some kind of weird side effect from where Buster came from. I don't know.
Well, I think when he was telling us about that creepy hand thing, it seemed like it was putting on an illusion to be something it wasn't. So, I mean, maybe they're connected, but maybe they're not. Um, I don't know. I can't shake the feeling that, even
Well,
a
see,
golden cage is still a cage.
but that's the thing that the impression that I got from Zinhorn was that it was trying to entice people in by making it exactly what they wanted to see. And when they got close, it was like creepy, like skeleton hands reaching to pull them in.
But that's not what we found here.
Yet, that's
Well,
what I'm saying. Like they used illusion to try to trick people.
One thing that I'll note here, first of all, Nedry, is that you find as after you've been reading for a moment that similar to what I described with Wuta, there's a little bit of a very gentle sensation of realizing, oh, there was a brief magical influence that is now gone. You're still holding the same book you were. Nothing seems to have changed, except you realize now that the it really seemed to be an influence only to get you to actually sort of engage with what was happening here, and now it has released you. And so you're sitting there, and it's still the book is just as interesting as it was. You have all of the stuff that's there, but you are no longer under any kind of a influence or compulsion, other than the fact that this place seems pretty cool. But the other thing for the rest of you is certainly you're aware of the possibility of illusions, but at the very least, um, you kind of look around, you knock on the tables, you pick up the book, you smell them. If it's an illusion, it's really good. It
Yeah.
feels real by anything you can determine.
I will actually like pull a book off the shelf
Mhm.
and just like start leafing through it.
Um, so once again, Jenny, you tell me, what book is it?
She would want anything about like the Mistress of the Dark that she could
Mhm.
find, like the absolute guide to like the Shadowfell and the Mistress of the Dark,
Mm-hmm.
just
Uh,
because like she has so many unanswered questions still.
So I think that what the book is made from, like, it wasn't as obvious when you pulled down the spine, but when you look at it, it is this incredibly dark black leather binding, and the title just says, uh, "There is more than darkness in the shadow."
Nice.
Would like to
Oh.
use the message cantrip and looking at Zaleen and say, "What are you doing? Stop touching stuff."
This is. I've been looking for this book. Look at it.
You should look elsewhere.
Edgar will kind of fold one of the pieces of paper to mark his spot in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think this might be the biggest repository of knowledge that ever exists, or could exist, really. It seems quite genuine. I suppose there's probably a book on how this place came to be here somewhere. Actually, it's
I bet
probably
you
right over
could
there.
pull one. Yeah, I was gonna say. You could probably pull one off the shelf.
It would take a lot of magic to weave this kind of a spell for so many people.
Well,
Not that it's impossible, but it would take a lot.
So do you try to see if you can find a book about where you are?
Oh yeah, Nedry will cast a hand over, hold on to the book that he has, and cast a hand over to grab another appropriate looking book.
Sure. I think what comes off the shelf, and there's a moment where you realize that, like, as you're pulling it off, it's actually a much thicker book than you expected, and you've come down, and it's like it's a full, big, proper tome that looks like very old but in very good shape. We're not talking about like rotten or dusty. It's just it's ancient but preserved, if you follow me. And as you sort of use your mage hand still lifts it easily now that even though once it comes out it looks like it would be heavy, but as you plunk it down on the table you see that there's an enormous font that reads the Eternal Waltz.
well, this is probably going to have the answers. It's going to take a while to read, though. I really should have taken that speed reading course that was recommended. I didn't have the time, ironically enough.
You're wasting time right now by talking about it.
Fair point.
Book open.
So do you just the rest of you kind of just wait for a bit, or?
I'm gonna flip through this book.
I'm
I
not
would-
touching anything. I will practice my lute. I will tune it and then tune it in different ways.
Hyper tune it.
I
Tune it to
think
the parallel dimension.
as you start tuning it, Carolina, there's a moment where you realize that you were thinking that the strange sound dampening in this place might make it feel weird or sound strange when you play it. But you find as you're tuning it that almost strangely, like for how cavernous this big reading room is, normally that wouldn't necessarily be great acoustics. But somehow, just in your own little sort of sound dampening bubble, sounds great.
I think I would try to pin down the music that I've heard while here,
Okay.
like analyzing it, like in a very,
Mhm.
frenetic kind of way, like
Okay. Yeah.
a
So
non academic would do.
yeah, make an intelligence check
Oof.
for me. If you're trying to do it like musically, or a performance check, I guess would be allowed. If you're
Performance
looking
check
at
would
it,
probably be better, but
yeah. If you're coming at it from a musical perspective, like
oh yeah, definitely that. Like just trying to figure it out because it's
Mhm.
everywhere.
yeah.
18.
Okay, that's pretty good. I think that you definitely recognize that although in the various different places that you have been so far, the character of the music has been very different, right? It was the thumping bass, hard dance music of the initial sort of festival in the Cinder Wastes, and then there was the more subdued string quartet style in the garden party. And then here it's kind of muted. It's almost like what's the way to say elevator music without it sounding bad? You know what I mean? Like it's
Calm instrumental.
yeah, calm instrumental. Because easy listening also sounds bad, right? But in any case, but you recognize that underneath all of that, it does actually feel like arrangements of the same song in very different ways, but there is a common melody underpinning it that's very complex, and you feel like you would have to listen for a long time to sort of get all of it, but you do feel like this is all one song. So, Zinhorn, you had made your way to this ski lodge and found what appears to be your father, looking exactly as he did when you last saw him as a small child. And you told him your name, and he said, "Hey, that's my kid's name."
Dad, that's me.
Come on. My kid he's a little kid. Now, hey, you look a lot like him, no question about it. I mean, like with the wings and everything. I mean, but yeah, come on, my kid. I saw my kid just wasn't that long ago. He's off. He's in one of the kids' parties.
Dad, it's been like 80 years
He starts like
that
looking.
you've been in here.
He's looking around at other people in the party. He's just like, "Is this just a new one? Is this a new one on me? Like I've not seen this one before. Like this is this like a prank? Like is this being recorded? Is there people watching me right now?"
I am Zinhorn Windborn, cleric of Rushama, and I am your son.
Make a persuasion check.
Oh, here comes the one. 16.
Okay. There's a power in your words that seems to kind of break through, and he's just looking at you, sort of frowning, and just like, well, I mean, but that like how could that be?
I was in here with you, and I found a way out.
What?
And it took me back to the prime material plane, and I was a child, and I was alone, and I didn't know where I was, or where I came from, or where my parents were. And I got lucky. I wound up in an orphanage in Pishan that was run by the Temple of Rushama, and they took me in, and they raised me.
He's looking increasingly concerned, and I don't know how much attention you're paying, but I think that there's an element to which, like there were other people around watching this, right? Like there were other people in the room who were kind of observing this conversation, and as you're starting to say all this, there's definitely like a sort of sense of bad vibes, kind of emanating from this conversation, and some of them kind of drift away, and some of them are looking almost like, I don't want to say annoyed, because that implies that they assign blame, right? They look like agitated, like maybe like upset on your behalf, perhaps, but also feeling like, wait a minute, what's this? This is wrong somehow, right? And so, by the same token, your father is just saying, but. Like I don't understand how that could be, because that's impossible. I mean, we've only been here for a couple of days. Did you find a layer of the party that let you become a grown up? I mean, what do you
No,
mean?
Dad, I got out of the party, and time returned to normal. We were in here for, you've been in here for like 60 or 80 years. I got out of the party like 15 years ago. I'm 22 now.
Well,
You've been in here. You've been in, like, you remember the Heroes of Legend and the message?
well,
Like
yeah. I mean,
that just happened not long ago to you, right?
one note, as even though he says, well, like, well, yeah, you can see that there's a moment a little bit like you're at a party and you've just said to someone is like, you remember my name, right? And there's a little bit like, do I? Yeah, yeah.
That I remember the message from the Heroes of Legend. It wasn't. I mean, like, I was old enough to remember it. It's been like 80 or 100 years since that message went out on the prime material plane.
Okay, well,
You've
hang
been
on.
in here a very long time, Dad.
Well, okay.
Where's Mom?
Well, I mean, I'm sure she's just having fun on another layer somewhere. I mean, I,
Do you
I'm,
know how
I,
does this place work?
you just go wherever you want, and the party knows where to take you. I mean, this is, I don't understand this. Like,
I'm gonna grab him by the hand
uh-huh.
and say, "I want you to tell the party to take us to see Mom." And I start thinking hard about wanting to see my mother.
Okay. So you've told him to lead?
I've told him to do the same,
Okay.
and like, I don't know how this works, if I have to walk or if it's going to change around me.
Well, I mean, you tell me what you're doing. Are you just standing there?
No, I asked him, like, do we to
What?
go see her? Do we need to walk or?
Okay. Well, you had not asked, but now you do.
Oh,
That's okay. Um, well, okay. I mean, we can do that, but I think I think that this must be a misunderstanding somehow. I just this can't be right. This can't be right. No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not trying to call you a liar. I just think that like there's a misunderstanding somewhere. But sure, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll find my wife. I, or you say okay. All right, hang on, just a second. And so he kind of starts walking like towards the front door of this lodge with you, and you've got his hand still. You're following along.
yeah, yeah.
Um, as you emerge, it is sort of cold and blustery outside, but even as you emerge into the snow, there's a moment of sort of recognizing that the cold is almost just like superficial. Like you sort of feel it initially, and you still feel the cold, but it's almost like when you were wearing the amulet of fire resistance on the fire plane. It's like you're still aware that it's cold, but it doesn't bother you in a meaningful way. And so, as he's kind of just guiding you down this snowy path, the wind kind of starts to blow up and the snow is blowing around you. And then, as it starts to clear, hold on just a moment. Where did my. There we go. As it starts to clear, um, you realize that it stopped being snow and started being like a little dust devil, and you realize that you're now on sort of a very rocky, craggy sort of almost like a cliff, but it's you're walking up into what looked like sort of a coliseum stands around like a big fighting pit, and you can see down in the pit is a great big orc wearing armor, and you see your mother the Dragonborn, you know, in chainmail of her own, and she's got a big axe, and she is going at it with this orc, but she seems to have a big grin on her face.
Okay. I turned to my dad. I'm like, can we interrupt the fight? Or, no, you know what? We're going to interrupt the fight. And I pull him into the arena.
Okay. Yeah. So as you do that, you get a lot of people in the audience, kind of you know, uproar. What is the meaning of this sort of thing? And there's definitely a sense of like you are disrupting what's supposed to be happening here, and people aren't happy about it. And certainly, your father. Incidentally, I'm going to start, you know, using their names, which I don't think you had named them.
I don't think I had
no,
named
so
them
they,
either.
no, I have names. I just wanted to make sure they didn't contradict with something you had sent me, and I forgot.
No.
So that your father is Carthorn and your mother is Zindra.
Okay.
So yeah, Carthorn is also like he's sort of letting you pull him along, but he is seeming like he's sort of trying to hang back a little bit. He's like, whoa, whoa, I mean, come on, you know, this isn't how we do things here. I mean, hang on. It's, like I said, I'm sure there's just a misunderstanding somehow. And as you are sort of making your way down onto the field, you kind of have to hop over a railing and then drop down like a little 10-foot drop there. And there's a moment where your mother Zindra kind of sees that that's happening and looks over with just sort of a curious expression, and then the orc just says, "Oh, 3-on-1, huh? Well, guess looks like I'm gonna use my big axe." And he like runs over to the side, and he exchanges this battle axe that he had already been having for a ridiculous axe. Like it is like this thing is like the size of like the handle's the size of like like a sapling, and like a 6-foot span of the blade. And he hefts it and says, "Ah!" And he is starting to charge at you, Zinhorn, and your dad, who.
Stop.
I
Family
mean,
meeting.
the orc
I
is not
need my
stopping.
mother. What?
The orc is not stopping. No, he is not stopping. He is charging
I'm
you.
gonna hit. I yell out, family meeting, right now.
Okay, go
and
ahead and roll
I-
initiative.
Okay. $13.
Okay. As you're trying to hold up your finger and say family meeting, he's charging at you, and he swings this enormous battle axe, and he gets an 18. Does an 18 hit?
18 meets it. So it hits.
Okay. Yeah, I think it hits. This enormous thing swings, and it actually hits you and your dad together. Because it's that big. And so I think you find yourself like the wind knocked out of you, and you are slammed backwards against the wall of this place, and you feel the injury. And you're going to take 14 slashing damage. And your dad, who is not even wearing armor, looks like he takes significantly more than that. And then your mother charges the orc from behind and jumps onto his back, her wings spreading wide, and she's got a short sword, and she's like hacking at his shoulders.
I'm going to heal my father.
Okay.
Let me see what I got. I'm gonna do cure wounds at 2nd level.
Okay. So you recognize as you're doing that you have a little bit of a realization as you're doing this kind of by default. This is of course what you do when you're healing in the injuries, and but there's also a little bit of a realization as you're doing it and you're aware of your own wound that like you can look down and you can see blood, right? Like there's an injury here, but there's also a little bit of a feeling like with the cold where you feel it, but you almost feel like you could shrug it off if you had to. Do you go ahead and heal regardless?
No, I'm gonna shrug it off.
Well, you were healing your dad,
Oh,
right?
well, yeah, well, I already did that. So
Okay, well, that's
yeah.
what I mean, though, is that
Oh,
that was,
oh, I
if you did that, that was your turn. You don't,
okay. So you're yeah. No, I'm not gonna do that.
wait, okay. You did
I-
heal your dad, and
Okay.
while you did that, you had that realization. It is
Okay.
not one or the other.
All right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. The orc is roaring, and he grabs backwards. He drops the axe and grabs backwards to grab your mother's feet, Zindra's feet, off of his shoulders, and he slams her down to the ground, just like, and there's like a cloud of dust emerges. And by the way, the crowd is happy again. They're totally on board for this. But there's a moment where Zindra has been slammed flat against the ground, but she kind of just looks back up over her shoulder. There's a moment where you see the expression on her face is not like anger or fear, it's exhilaration. But there's also a little bit of confusion, like, what's happening? This is strange.
I'm so confused. I'm going to get in her face and say, "I am Zinhorn Windborn, cleric of Rushama. I am your son. We need to talk."
All right. And as you do that, the enormous you are belatedly aware of that enormous axe coming down, swinging down in a massive strike over both you and your mother. And then there's kind of a moment of disorientation, and you find yourself sitting on a wooden bench over to one side of this arena. And there's you feel for a moment like, wait, that was strange, but you seem fine now, and you realize your mother is kind of sitting next to you in kind of much the same condition, and your dad is kind of walking over to you and just saying, could have just waited till the fight was over.
Um,
The orc, by
Okay.
the way, is in the center holding up the axe, which is bloody, and he's to the crowd.
I just got back here, so I don't know how things work. But I need the two of you to focus.
Uh,
Do you even recognize each other?
Zindra, yeah, and Carthorn look at each other and say, "Well, of course, yes,
What's
of
his
course
name?
we." Carthorn,
What's her name?
Zindra,
All right. How long have you known each other?
there's a moment where it seems like they have to think about it.
Yeah, you
But
shouldn't have to think about that.
well, okay. I mean, I
I'm,
got a brief.
Zinhorn is getting very mad at his parents.
Oh, sure. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about in real life. I think people forget things like how old they are and stuff all the time. So, it's one of those things where it's like you think you shouldn't have to think about it, and yet, anyway, I mean, they kind of look to you, and Zindra is kind of saying, Carthorn, like, what is happening here? Like, you've never, you never come to the fight before. Like, who is this? What is, you say you're my son? Look, You look a lot like him. That's great, but he's a little kid.
It's been 15 years since I've seen you, Mom.
I,
I left the party. I found a way out, and I was alone. I happened to get very lucky. I wound up in Pashan in an orphanage, but I couldn't remember anything about where I grew up or how I got where I was after leaving this party. But we were in this party for like 60 or 80 years. And you've been in here 15 years while I grew up.
so once again, as you tell the story again, they both of them are listening intently, and they really seem to be taking it in and just looking like you see this sort of dawning like heartbreak and sorrow as it would seem that they are believing you even though they don't understand how this could have happened. But then your mother just looks at you in the eyes. Sinhorn, it's you?
It's really me. And I give her the biggest hug anyone has given anyone ever.
She returns it, but as she's hugging you, what she whispers to you as her head is kind of over your shoulder is, "Thank goodness you found your way back."
I found my way back to you and Dad, and now we all have to figure out how to get out of here.
She kind of pulls back and she glances, at Carthorne and says, "Why would we want to do that? You just got back."
This place isn't real.
They laugh to each other. uh, yes, it
It's
is.
it's make believe. You were adventurers. You went on adventures. You solved real problems for real people. This is all make believe. You couldn't
Uh,
survive getting that guy couldn't wield that axe, much less we couldn't have survived it.
so, like Carthorne says, Zinhorn, okay, look, I don't know how this happened this way. Like, we were told that you were totally safe, and the fact that you somehow, like, got
They
lost and
lied. They lied to you. I was on my own. I
wait
was a
just a minute.
child.
That's my point, though, is that you're a child. You don't necessarily know what happened. What we can tell you is that this place is real. It's not make believe, and it's a much better place. We are heartbroken for you that you were not able to stay here with us, but now that you're back, you want to leave. Why would we do that? It's terrible out there, as you said.
The real world needs people like us to make things better. I worked in the orphanage. I became a cleric. I spent all of my time helping people to make life better for people as unfortunate as me or worse. That's what you taught me. That's what you did. And to stay here in this place does nothing for anyone. And I feel like you've been here so long, you're forgetting who you were and where you came from and who you used to be. You were like everyone knew who you were. I remember that. You were like big time hotshot adventurers. You helped people. You got rid of the evil in the world. You made life better. And I've been doing that for as long as I've been able to. But you can't do that here. It's all playtime and make believe, which is fine for a while. But it's been a very long time and I miss you.
You don't have to miss us anymore. You're
There
here.
are
We're here. We're
real
here together.
things going on in the real world, and they need people like me and my friends to sort them out. And even though it often feels like we don't know what we're doing or which way we're going, we're always trying to make things better.
Your mother like takes that in and just says, and you think we have to do that forever? We don't get a chance to rest sometime?
No, you get a chance to rest, but you've been resting for longer than you've been alive. Like I said, it's been something like 80 years that you've been in here. When did, at some point, you have to say, I've had my rest. It's time to go back. It's time to pick up the fight once more and help real people. And there will always be time to rest in between adventures, in between helping people. You deserve rest. And at some point, you will put down your burdens. And if you choose to find this place again and come back, that will be your choice.
Carthorne looks at you and says, Zinhorn, it was our choice. We made it. And at that point, you suddenly hear a voice say, all right, that's enough of this sort of disruption. We can continue this backstage. And you realize, looking down, Zinhorn, that a pair of long, black, skeleton-y hands has grabbed you around the ankles from nowhere, like they just emerged from the ground. And as they yank, you find yourself being just pulled right down through the ground.
Oh, shit.
Wuta, you are you just meditating still in the monastery? Have
Yeah,
you
I am
been?
still meditating. I want to cast stillness of mind on myself while I'm meditating,
Okay, yeah.
and just on the off chance that there's still something like
Hmm.
charming me, just to get rid of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you absolutely do that, and that you have that ability to use an
Yeah.
action to remove a charm effect on yourself. But go ahead and make a wisdom check for me. You
Wisdom
can,
check. Okay.
yeah, you can make a wisdom saving throw, but this is not really like a wisdom saving throw, like to resist something now. It's more like to understand what's been happening.
Sure. Sure. 19.
That's pretty good. So I think that what you recognize, taking a moment with your thoughts and to, consider like, what was it that you were feeling, the transition that you felt when it sort of, the effect seems to end. What are you feeling now in this place? You recognize that it certainly was a charm effect that you initially experienced when you heard the music. But compared to things like the charm person's spell, for example, this is a comparatively very gentle influence. And it seems more connected to helping you to find the place that would be best for you, like the place that you would most enjoy, and getting you to like find your way there rather than to compel you otherwise, right? Like it's engaging with you to sort of learn what you want and to help you figure out how to get there.
Right.
And then once you have, it lets go.
Okay.
And so you can recognize that you are no longer feeling that, but that it wasn't controlling your actions in the way that some other charm effects can. It was more like giving you an idea.
Okay. Then yeah, I mean, I think I'm just gonna keep waiting for the host to come back for another little bit, just to
Okay.
see if he found my friends yet.
All right.
Yeah.
You don't see him, but what you do see as you're sitting. So describe the mental picture here of Wuta as you're meditating. Like, where have you chosen to do it, and what do you look like when you're doing it?
I'm just sitting like in a monk posture, cross-legged on the floor. It's the place that like describe the place that we're in.
Well, sure, yeah. Like, what sort of place would you have
It
chosen?
would definitely be like sort of like an open mountaintop scene, um, with a very like the it's like an open space, so the wind is blowing through. It's got four pillars holding up sort of like a stone ceiling.
Hmm.
Um, there's the rugs on the floor. It's just very very simple. It's nothing elaborate.
Hmm.
It can't be anything elaborate with it being high atop a mountain. It's just a very simple, quiet, serene place overlooking nothing, nothing but mountains off in the distance as well. Almost,
Hmm.
almost like a Bob Ross painting.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, and so as you're sitting there meditating, but like you're not unaware of your surroundings, right? Like
yeah.
that's kind of the whole point is you're being there in the surroundings. But there's a moment where you feel just like the gentlest little prod on your knee. And as you look down, you see that emerging right out of the ground, almost like you had seen when the host was, dictating the notes
Mm-hmm.
to that little creature. The emerging from the shadow cast by your own knee on the ground, you see just this little hint of a face, a little round head, and a little long skinny arm that has just sort of tapped you on the knee.
Well, well, hi there. Uh,
It
what,
waves its little hand.
oh, what can I do for you, little feller?
It taps you on the knee again and then points back towards the like the monastery building.
Oh, you want me to go in there?
Thumbs up.
All right. This whole trip can't get any weirder. So maybe you found my friends. All right, and I'll get up and
Okay.
head on back
Yeah.
inside.
You start to get up, and I imagine you're being careful because it seems like there's a little thing under your knee, but it's like as the shadow changes as you move position, he's just not there anymore. But as you walk towards the door of this monastery, you see that up in like the shadow in the like the corner of the eaves, you see another face that kind of reaches its arm out, and like the little blob of shadow is coming from like 3 feet away from the door, but this tiny, skinny little arm stretches out that far and does a little knock on the door. And you
Okay.
see, and now then you see sort of light forming around like in the cracks of the door.
Hmm.
And then it sort of it extends that same long arm like over to the front of your face with another thumbs up, and then withdraws.
All right. So I push open the door,
Mm-hmm.
and where am I?
You are finding yourself emerging into an elaborate library.
Hey,
Yeah,
there we
and
go.
yeah, and then as you are looking around, you see that Nedry, Carolina, and Zaleen are off in a little corner across the room.
I know it's a library, and I respect libraries as a monk. I
Hmm.
know all that, but I just yell out, "Whoo, doggy! Am I glad to see you?"
You do that, and it feels normal to you, but there's a strange sort of like you would expect an echo or like a
Right.
like ambiance in this sort of place that you don't hear. So it sounds to you like you had just done that in a much smaller room, and they don't look up, and neither do any of the other people in the room react.
I said, "Is it good to see you?"
Are you
And-
still if you're continuing to do it from
Right.
far away, you get the same result. But if you approach closer,
I'm puzzled by that. I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of just like I kind of like move. I walk over to them.
sure, sure, yeah.
So-
And then as you get closer, you can hear them speaking softly, and now you can be heard by them. You realize that it was proximity.
Oh, hey there, fellers.
And Carolina jumps up and runs over and hugs him. Oh my gosh, I thought we lost you.
Hey, girl, I ain't known you but for a minute. Oh,
I wonder.
where are we? I mean, I know where we are, but like, what is going on?
Carolina, did you really want to see Wuta again?
Of course.
Huh. And then he just sort of appears because you wanted him to be.
Well,
Well, I've been wanting Wuta and Zinhorn, but Zinhorn's not here yet.
And
As
also
as you say
Buster-
that, Zinhorn, as you felt yourself pulled through the floor, there's a brief sensation, almost like you imagine that you're on, like if you were in like a mudslide, like you are moving at a great rate of speed, sliding down like a slope by what doesn't feel like gravity. It feels like you're being pulled along by your feet, but it's completely dark with occasional little hints of slightly less dark shadow, but it almost feels like you're in, like the shadow here has kind of a substance to it, like you can almost sort of feel it sliding past you. And there's a moment where you are briefly stopped in your motion, and everything sort of clears a little bit, and you see a big sort of like 9 foot tall but very crooked posture, sort of humanoid shape, surrounded by a whole bunch of little sort of bulbous faces that seem to just be sticking up out of the shadow, and then kind of looming past this humanoid shape, you see the recognizable structure of a gray render, and then another one. But then you realize that those two are both considerably bigger, and those are not Buster, but they are creatures like him. And they look at you and sort of snarl just gently, like just sort of thing. And this humanoid figure turns over to you, has like kind of long greasy hair, and then like looks down at you and just says, "You going to behave? I'll show you your friends." You're muted.
you're muted.
Yes, I don't understand. What do you mean behave? I just want to help my parents. I want to help people.
No, she leans in, and like she's got her finger is like 8 inches long. She's just leans it, and it's got a big long pointy nail on it. She leans it up to like hush, and she just says, "People are here to have a good time, and you're not giving them a good time. Your friends want you. I'm delivering you to them. Stop causing problems. There won't be any problems.
May I ask a question?
Ask them." And she suddenly like pulls like a lever, like she just reaches up, and there's like a lever as she grabs it. Like there wasn't anything there until she grabbed something. Pulls a lever, and you suddenly feel yourself falling, and we cut back to Carolina saying, "But Zinhorn's not here," and all of a sudden he falls out of nowhere, thump, onto the table right between you all.
Aha! This is fitting in my theory. Although, admittedly, it's sort of a theory in motion.
Mm,
Okay,
Well,
we're
I
all
was-
here now. Can we go?
Why would we go now?
I found my parents.
okay, let's get them and get out of here.
Did you
They-
really find your parents, or did you
Yes.
want to find your parents?
Both.
How
This
do
is
you know
the
it
place. I know.
was?
Like, it's them. But I also saw backstage. I saw the thing that created this party.
Okay.
and it
Yep.
does not like me messing with it. And it's got two things like Buster. Like maybe it's Buster's parents. I don't know, but they're
Have you
bigger
seen
than
Buster?
Buster. I haven't seen Buster, but I saw two whatever Busters are. Um, and yeah, I mean, like I wasn't gonna fight the thing. By the way, it's the creepy thing with the long arms. Um,
Like
So that
from
was gonna.
yeah. See,
It
yeah,
had like a whole bunch of arms, like dozens of them.
no, no, just like two arms, but like 8 foot long arms, like really creepy bent posture. And it's backstage, whatever backstage is. But when I was talking to my parents, I was convincing them that it was time for them to leave, that they've been here long enough, and it pulled me into backstage. Like this whole thing is some like grand kind of illusion, or with a pocket dimensions wrapped up in each other or something. Um, and there was no way I was going to win that fight without you guys.
Well, if
so
I've learned anything, it's that just because something is pretty doesn't mean it's good. And just because something might be a little weird looking, different, doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. This place gives me the creeps. I don't like it.
Yeah, I
Well,
look
you-
around. This is like putting lipstick on a pig. You know, it's just not right.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah.
I think what you're trying to say is it's too true to be good, and that's more of a cynical position. For me, it's more about whether the information is good or correct.
I
So
don't think that
far-
is what she was saying, Nedry. I think what she said was what she meant. I think that because this is new and exciting, and there's so much you could learn here, makes it like a wonderful and glorious place to you. But I mean, Zinhorn, you couldn't, like, where are your parents now?
Sorry. They were. We were at a fighting arena. My mom was fighting someone, and I pulled them out of the fight by dying. Um,
Wait, you
and
died?
and not really. Just kind of lost the game. Um,
Okay.
it was the it was my mom was fighting an orc like 3 times her size, and I pulled my dad in, and the orc was like, "Oh, 3-on-1," and pulled out this enormous axe with a head like long, bigger than my arms are wide, and hit me and my mom with the axe, and we were in the stands with my dad, and they were just like, "Oh, we lost the fight."
Do I see any
But
evidence of like violence or like blood spatter on him? Anything?
That's the whole point. It's not real. Yeah, I got hit right
But-
here.
I
So
think
then
as you
it's-
look down, there is actually a mark on your armor.
Okay.
but
You
where are
realize
they
you are not
now?
injured, but the place where your armor was damaged is still damaged.
I don't know where they are now. Like I said, I got this thing
Yeah.
pulled me into backstage and told me to stop making waves, and threatened me with two bigger than Buster Busters. I don't know what to call them.
So,
Um,
did they
Yeah,
recognize you?
like
my parents eventually realized that it was me. They recognized me, but it's been 15 years since I've seen them. They still think of me as a little kid, and they think
Right.
it's only been a few days since they've seen me, and they were told I would be all right.
Okay, Nedry, that is not good. That is not a good thing.
Well,
if it's
without
been
reference
15
to any
years and they
particular,
think it's only been a few days, how long have we been in here?
well, without reference to an actual time measure, it's impossible to know, really. There are some people whose internal measures of time are able to accurately calculate that, but we've never been able to manifest that properly. We could have been in here for a long time, but judging by the amount of paper that I've read, it hasn't been that long. It's the only measure I have. I do read quickly.
Uh, I
I
mean,
I wonder if when we leave this place, if you're even going to retain the information you've read.
That is a fear that I have. That's why I'm trying to take as many notes and see if I can store them in a place that might be somewhat protected. I'm not sure
Well-
what the interior of the bag will be like with this space, but it's worth a try.
So
Yeah.
here's a worry. Remember we had a ride to the city of brass?
mhm.
Yeah,
Are we still
I'm
going to
not
have a
carrying-
ride when we get out of here?
I told
That's
him not to go anywhere. I told him not to come near the party. So hopefully he listened. He didn't really seem to have much interest in following us into this bizarre whatever
Well, yeah,
it
but
is.
if we've been in here for a day and it's been 10 years outside, sooner or later he's going to get tired of waiting.
I should hope so. We'll
Well,
have
we
to.
know
So,
where he
I-
went.
I think the sooner we can get out of here, the better.
Yeah. But
But
I
what
mean,
about your parents, Sinhorn?
and
Do you
Buster.
think you can convince them
And the
to come with us?
books.
No, we can't take the books, Nedry.
I
know you
think
want
I
to.
was really close to convincing them to leave, and I think that's why backstage interrupted me. And Nedry, you have a big bag you could stuff the books in now that Tanglefoot's gone.
I know, but I'm
But,
not entirely
like,
certain that they'll remain. They
yeah,
may be made of fey material or some
And
other
that would be
ethereal nature.
stealing,
Also,
even if-
that.
even
That's a
if
good
they're,
point.
illusions or whatever they are.
yeah.
It's still stealing.
And I have not seen Buster.
No,
I,
it's
like I said, I saw, I don't know, Buster's parents, his brothers, his cousins. What,
So
I don't know.
Do you think this is where he's from?
I don't know, but I don't think so. I kind of got the feeling with all the time that I spent with him that he was like me. Like he spent time here, but he didn't really want to be here, and he found a way out, and I found a way out.
But
Um,
what if he did want to be here with his family, and the reason that he connected with you is because you recognized the dissonance of that melody. Does the music sound the same, Zinor?
I haven't stopped to listen to it.
You
Yeah.
can hear it, like it's very faint because of the dampening from the library, but
Well, yeah. So what you can hear now, Zinhorn, makes it sounds like the music you always remembered. It doesn't sound like the dissonant version.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, this sounds like the normal version. I'm gonna pull out my flute, and I'm gonna like play along with the music
Okay.
just to make sure that it is the same. To make sure that I've played the same tune for 15 years. Like I know the muscle memory. I want to make sure that it feels the same to me.
Yeah. So it's you realize that like the what's being heard right now is not, like it's different arrangements kind of the same melody, but you do find it's a match in terms of the melody. You're able to sort of play along with it. Do go ahead and make a wisdom saving throw for me, though, as you do.
'19.
Okay. Yeah, you the music kind of swirls up around you, and as you are engaging with it, it gives you a feeling of like nostalgia. And I think what you are actually presented with is just sort of momentarily a very vivid memory that this is the song you remember from when you were here as a kid. And the thing is, it's felt like a dream for so long that what you really realize is you when you were here, you did like it here.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a fleeting memory, but it's like you haven't really thought about the time spent here for a long time because mostly what overweighed that was everything that has happened since. It felt like a relatively small portion of life that's surrounded by so much other like hardship and negative feelings. But there's just a moment where you realize is like when you were here, you were happy before.
Okay. Huh. Well, yeah, I mean this is the song. I mean, it feels just the same, but it's like variations on the same song.
But maybe that's like Buster knew that you would be able to bring him home because you'd been here.
Maybe he didn't mean to leave. Whoa.
Whoops.
What just happened?
When
I will be
people turn the
Zaleen
camera
now.
on and off, it moves everyone
I
around.
yell.
Nope. He came back. The cat
Sorry.
came back.
I am now Zinhorn.
Oh my
Ah.
god. I'm sorry. I thought this was like Google Hangouts. I didn't realize this
No,
would cause a disaster.
yeah, it does. Well, yeah. So it don't now you know.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Um, yeah. So
I'm just
no
gonna sit here and
interruption
think
in
of death and
character.
stuff.
That's what I think about. I mean, if you don't, then you're not thinking.
It's great. Zaylin with Wuta's accent. This is getting really confusing.
That might be a fun night.
Oh boy.
Did it for a whole audiobook.
Yep.
Well, some of the answers, at least, will be in that book. It may not give us everything, but it should give us a better idea about what this place is like.
Well, how do you know if it's the truth?
Well, we can test certain parts of it.
Well, maybe
Some
it'll
of it, I
just show you
suspect-
what you want to see. Seems to be how this place works.
It's different than that, though. The reason I wanted to see a library was actually because I kind of thought this might be some form of dream. Dreams are very strange. The little bit of reading about them, I kind of dismiss them as a useful form of cognitive intellectual inquiry, because in dreams, while you can manifest whatever you might want to, reading tends to be something that doesn't come across. Even if you want to, you get the sense you are reading it, but it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. The books seem to stand up to scrutiny, so it's not exactly dream. At least that's the theory I'm working under. So there is something of truth to this place. Just not exactly sure how to get a finger on all of that, but I think it can be manipulated to our benefit. One of the things I was thinking about actually is if this place does actually touch multiple planes, it could be a useful passageway for us, possibly to return to the material plane faster than we expected, or potentially to touch other planes that we need to go to. It might touch all the planes for all I know, but it might be difficult to find the appropriate doors.
Well,
There
I
may be a
mean,
manual for that.
if Zinhorn found his way to the material plane before, couldn't we just go the way he went?
That's the idea, although you'd have to find a way to find the right door.
Right.
I would also like to point out that we still have items to return to someone.
Yes.
I when I got here, I met this guy called the host, and he told me I could leave whenever I wanted. And so, I mean, I could just call on him, and maybe he could direct me in the right direction.
So on that note, Nedry, go ahead and make an investigation check for the reading you were doing.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't long. I
No.
think from your perspective, you were really only waiting in the library for, relatively speaking, like 10, 15 minutes.
He skimmed a whole lot and made a lot of assumptions.
Sure.
24.
That's pretty good. I think the part that, other than kind of skimming to see that as far, like the big tome, I assume that's the one you're looking through, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So it apparently contains some actually really elaborate sort of high magic information and stuff in there that gets into like actual mechanics to the point where a lot of it is honestly beyond you, which is probably exciting, but some of it. But what you also found early on was an introduction that kind of describes that, back in the beginning when the world was new, there was chaos and there was cruelty and there was violence and there was despair, and there was one individual who decided that he would devote all of his power to making a place where that wasn't true, where none of those things could penetrate, and that only good things could happen inside. And it would be a place where those who had been mistreated by the outside world could find respite, rest, and joy in a way that the cruel, cruel outside world could never do. And so this individual created, through his own power, the Eternal Waltz, and he became the host, which is, of course, when Wuta brings up the host, you certainly recognize the reference.
That would be a reference to, or rather, the actual person who created this place. According to the book, and admittedly, books are sometimes tilted truth from the authors. Nonetheless, it seems like it's a genuine attempt.
Well,
And the magic is incredible if it's even partially true. And honestly, I won't be able to understand it without a few decades of study, which I'm kind of interested in.
well, I mean, Nedry, are you a man of your word?
I try to be.
Well, from what I gather, you got some items to return to some people. So you made a promise, didn't you?
Well, I made a promise that the items will be returned, yes.
Well, don't you think you should fulfill that promise?
Well, I'm sure there's some
And
magic
studying in
here that would
books and
allow me
everything.
to drop those into whatever plane I wanted to.
Well, I mean, like studying in the books and everything is great, but I mean, there's a job to do, you know. And if you know what Zinhorn's been through is true, and time passes differently on the outside, then you know if you're here too long, those people that you got stuff to return to might be dead by the time you get there.
Well, not everybody has to stay. Somebody else could take the items back.
Yeah, but Nedry, we have other things to do.
And I'll
You
be in a much better
know,
place to do all of those if I understand so much more.
but if the world ends because you were here and not
And I
there, then you know, we're kind of committed to this, right?
There's other
This-
libraries in the world. This isn't the only library. I mean,
I'm
I
not
know.
entirely certain that's true anymore.
Well, I know we've been trying to find a library for a really long time, but I promise you we will find one.
Well, here's my thought. What you read in there is like nothing in here is bad, right? That's what you read. But that's not how the real world is. There are just good things and bad things. And if there's nothing but good, then that makes it a lie.
Not exactly. I mean, everybody strives to have the better world. And if they actually got it, you're saying that it would be bad?
Yeah,
And
But what would be the
besides,
point? What would be the
to,
point?
to live a good life.
There
That
would
seems
be
like a
no
really good
challenge
thing
in
to
that.
me.
All you have to do is sit around and do nothing because everything's fine. When you will know that somewhere else there are people in danger, there are people suffering. There are
And I would
things
wish
that
them
you
to come
could do
here.
about it.
I would wish them to come here.
but they're just here living fake lives. I mean, Zinhorn, didn't you say that your mother was having a battle? I mean, that's reflective of the kinds of things that they tried to escape the outside world to get, away from, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a real battle, but like nobody really got hurt. They were just, you know, seemed to
They
be
were
able to go all out fighting, but it was just a game.
That's
that's
not
the,
living.
yeah,
There were no consequences.
which
That
you know
sounds like
isn't
a-
true.
Sounds like a
Nedry.
wonderful living to me. This is
No.
not
It's
the
not
material
living at
plane. It's
all.
not. It's not the world that we're used to. That's for sure.
Okay,
But
but
I'm
look at
not
it.
entirely certain it's not real in a
Look at
certain
the
sense.
look at it this way. You just said there's no consequences, but the real consequences are Zinhorn's parents have been here for 15 years, completely unaware of the fact that their little boy disappeared and became an adult.
To clarify the timeline, it's been considerably longer than 15 years because,
Well, I mean, just since he disappeared, is that
well, yeah, so when Zinhorn spent a couple of days here with them, he emerged to discover that 60 years had passed. And then, since then, for the rest of you, 15 years have passed. On
So
top of that.
if I may, Nedry, the point is, dying is easy, living is harder, and we all know that living means hardship. I mean, sure, we all strive for a better life, we all strive for a better world, but we don't expect, nothing to go wrong. We know things go wrong. We know things go askew. We know we're put to the test. That's living. If you're in a place where none of that happens, what are you doing?
are you even really alive?
Are
I'm
you alive?
learning the best challenge
what
of
would
all.
be the point?
Yeah,
What would be the point of
what
learning
to know
all that
more.
stuff?
To know more to do what with? I mean, what
How
is
are
the
you
whole
going to
purpose?
apply it to
Yeah.
At
anything?
some point, I could do anything I wish.
No,
But you won't
Nedry.
have to ever. Not here. There won't be any choices. You'll just sit
Then-
around and read books.
And keep
It's all
reading and
choices.
reading and reading and reading because it'll be always there's something new to learn. And like we've had this conversation before. I understand that you love learning new things, but you're not going to learn through experiencing new things in a place like this.
Don't you want to meet new people, experience new things that you
I
can't
can
get in
probably
books?
do both of those here if I want to.
Look, I mean, there's a flute playing, and the music is calling to you, Nedry. I'm telling you.
Funny, it sounded better in my head.
But I don't want to leave you here. Okay? Who's going to ride on my shoulder when you get tired of walking? If you're here and I'm out there,
I'm sure you can find a shoulder bag or something.
I don't want a shoulder bag, Nedry. I want you to ride on my shoulder.
Think about the mystery that we're unraveling.
Yes, you will
I
never
know.
find the answers that we're looking for here.
Are you sure about that?
And he'll
Yes.
send the mage hand over to the shelf again to
Mhm.
pull
But
out a
how will
book
you-
on Dinethir.
How will you ever know that's true?
As the mage hand brings back there, it says the rise and fall of the Dinutherian principality.
This should be interesting. Imagine all the answers to all the questions I've ever been asking is here. I can
For what
finally
purpose?
get those answers.
For
To
what
know.
purpose? And do what with? Just to know it? So what?
Anything I need to do.
Who are you going to
But
tell?
you won't be doing anything.
You'll
You won't ever
never,
have to.
ever
You already
do
said it,
anything
Wuta.
again.
I can leave anytime I want to. So
but
I
it'll
can
be
leave this
like
place.
decades and decades away. You don't understand like what we're trying to explain. Like
Yeah,
you
but-
say
You have love
this,
somewhere.
but I mean, the friends of the emperor, the adversary, all of those people will win at what they're trying to do, at what we're imminently trying to stop, because you gave up here to
Just to read some
read
books.
a book
And you kind of
about
see Nedry's listening, but at the same time he's kind of looking off in the sort of distance, and his eyes are twinkling a little bit.
Huh.
And he sends the mage hand over for a book on the adversary.
Okay.
Oh man, at some point you just got to cut bait and run.
I feel like I don't want to fight like Nedry. I don't want to argue with you, but I don't want to leave you here either.
You'd be here by yourself.
I'd be here
Uh,
with the books.
I will take the back path. You will never see.
I am going to lean down and I'm going to give him a hug. A book
Hey.
can't give you a hug.
If I need a hug, I can just ask someone here to give me a hug.
But they won't know you. They won't
Won't
be
you
your
miss
friend.
Sorashana?
Sorry, that flute gets me every time.
I mean, think of all the things you could learn with her. Like, you guys are so great together, like the way you put your minds together and figure
She
things
should
out.
really see this place. She would be amazed.
She
Well,
doesn't
she'll
like
never know
people.
about it because
She trusts so
You can
few
tell her.
people.
I won't tell her because I'm not going to lose her and you.
Who's going to be my dragon brother?
I guess
You
I'll
can
have to
never-
learn how to fly.
I am going to take Nedry's hands and I'm going to lean down in front of him, like crouch down in front of him. I'm going to look at him. Nedry, we can't stay here. I know you know this. I don't want to leave you alone, but we can't stay here. And I don't want to leave you.
Well, then,
I left you
let me
once.
learn as much as I can before we go. I'll try to keep the list short, but there are things we need to know, and if we give up the one chance we might have of finding anything we need to know,
This isn't
that
the
would be
only
foolish.
chance.
This won't be the only chance.
And it's not
it's the only one I've seen
way.
that's for sure.
We have all those books that we took out of the tower. We have Rupino in a diamond that we could release whenever we want to. And
Have
he
to know
could
more
answer
about them.
questions.
And the other
Okay.
guy, too.
Yeah, like we could raise his corpse and ask him more questions.
I could
Doggone
probably
right.
find that spell here. It'll take me time to learn it. I'm not that good yet, but I could learn it.
There are other places you could learn that.
We don't have time to stay here and let you learn all of these things, Nedry. I wish we did.
And that's the fun of it, isn't it? That's the fun of life. Is
So-
expected the unexpected.
I want to just briefly intervene to make sure we're not going in circles here. Is this something like, I think it probably belatedly occurs to you that you had certainly been told that from multiple directions at this point, that you could leave anytime you wanted, that they could answer more of your questions. But, Zaylene, you do also recall asking essentially to be left alone to talk until you're ready. So I think it probably does occur to you that if you all had more questions that you wanted to ask about others rather than only discussing amongst yourselves, that
Right.
might be something all you have to do is ask.
Okay. I will just say one more thing. Nedry, you can always come back here. You can ask for an invitation to come back here and spend the rest of your life here when we're done doing the things that we need to do. Just think about that.
You can't study the academy from here either. All
The
those
Academy doesn't have
experiments.
nearly this many books.
I know, but I mean,
You
we
see the
can.
point they're all trying to make, Nedry? I think the point is they love you.
I know.
It's like stupid love. Stupid family. I didn't ask for this family. So I think if we want to ask more questions, now would be the time to do it. But I think we do need to hurry because I don't want too much time to pass. We need to get to the city of brass. We need to get these amulets back.
Oh yeah, man. Think of how angry that dragon's gonna be. Woo.
Yeah. Like, what if she takes it out on them because we messed around?
Man, oh man.
That was already solved. You could just take the amulets back without me. That's not a problem. But
Okay, we're done arguing though. You can ask for permission to come back here later.
I suppose.
I can't fight things without you. Carolina can't fight things without you. Zinhorn can't fly without you. I mean, he can, but he doesn't like to.
I mean, how
I just
many
met you,
times
but
have
I'm
you
sure-
saved me?
I just
Lots.
met you, but I'm sure there's something I can't do without you.
Thanks, Wuta. That means a lot. Um, I'm sure you'll do just fine without me, but maybe we'll wait to figure that out a little bit later.
Excellent. Let's go.
Do we have any questions that we want to ask the host?
Are you kidding?
No, I mean anybody but Nedry. Do we have any questions we want to ask the host?
Why do I
about
keep
your
with you people?
parents? Because we love you.
I want to know
Nope.
what backstage is.
Do you
I asked about
really?
backstage, and they said that's more for the VIP members. So I don't know what's going on back there, but we really got time to find out.
Well, all of this
No.
magic takes a lot of power to maintain. It's undoubtedly more like an area to make sure everything's going smoothly. It would be interesting to study, but I'm not really sure if I care about going there right
Yeah.
now.
Well, I want us to get Buster and go.
Okay, but
Well-
are you prepared for Buster not wanting to go?
Uh-oh.
No, but I will deal with it if
This
he
might
wants
be
to
where
stay.
he belongs.
Are we even
It
doing
might
that?
be. If that's the case, then so be it. But
Nedry kind of kicks the carpet.
Sure, he gets to stay.
but
He
I
was born here. You weren't.
Should have been.
well,
Maybe
we're gonna.
your next life.
I wanna give Buster the option to come with us.
Okay.
All right. So first we got to find him. So let's bring out the host. Host.
Hey, wait a minute. Caraway.
Oh, no.
So, I think
You could
that,
call the host.
well, it sounds like both have been invoked. As Wuta calls for the host and Zaleen calls for Caraway. Both appear. The host sort of bows out of one of the tall shadows between the shelves and then steps forward. You all see this same individual who he's like human or half elf, maybe. It's a little unclear, but his proportions are strange. As I mentioned, the dapper suit. And then, of course, Caraway, the fairy dragon, also sort of flutters in, and they both, approach. And Caraway says, "At last! It was so hard not listening into your conversation, but you asked for privacy." And then
Yeah,
the host. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm sorry if I was rude. I don't.
Oh,
I don't
no,
mean to be.
I completely understand. Don't worry about it at all. I totally know I know that the world outside is hard, and that makes it hard to accept something good like this. And so I understand that you need to talk about it. It was totally okay. And the host just kind of approaches with a smile as well and says, "Greetings to all of you. I have been you have been described to me by your friend Wuta here, whom I met previously. I am the host, and I am your host. You are, of course, welcome to stay, but I sense that you are considering leaving, and while I might make a pitch for staying, you are, as I mentioned, free to go as you like. This is not a prison, it is a respite."
If is there a way, and I appreciate that, but is there a way to, is there any kind of way that we can get back here? Like, if we should want to come back at some point, how would we do that?
I'm afraid that is very difficult. You see, we have a process through which we find individuals who are in need of the respite that we offer. And thus, those individuals we reach out to them and draw them to us, and they are able to choose to join here. And that is our normal process. But we do have, in the places that we touch other planes, the occasional visitor, such as yourselves, who happen upon us unawares of where they venture to. Unfortunately, if you are not called to us by the despair you feel in the harsh outside world. You
Well,
simply are limited to happening across us, which does not happen every day.
well, let me give you a hypothetical just for a moment. All right. Somebody really, really, really wants to be here, but they got obligations to fulfill, so they decide to leave. And for like a really long time, they're longing to come back to this place. Would that be enough for, you to sense them out on the material plane that they really, really want to come back?
It has happened, but the truth is that the outside world has many people who suffer, and we are
Mm-hmm.
not able to bring all of them here.
I understand. I understand.
We do what we can.
All right. So it is possible, it's just not common.
That is correct. I can offer no guarantees.
Gotcha. But it has happened and it will happen again. You hear that, Nedry? You're all right.
And I found my way back.
Yeah, look at Zinhorn. He found his way back.
I am curious about that because my understanding, well, let me put it this way. Your arrival in the first instance was not through your own despair, but you came along with the individual who was called. And I'm not sure what happened then, because certainly you would have been allowed to leave. But as far as I know, the only way that you could have left is if you wanted to leave, knowing that you left your parents inside. I don't understand how it could have happened any other way.
I was 7 years old. I mean, like, if I was happy, why would I have wanted to leave? I, I don't understand that at all. I don't understand. I don't have any memory of leaving this place.
Well, what about Buster? I mean, didn't
Well, more to the
wasn't
point,
Buster also very tiny when we found him, or when he
it's
was found?
true.
Yes, we actually came here with a I don't want to call him a monster, but I guess he would kind of be considered a monster, like a big gray sort of guy with lots of, you know,
Teeth and claws and six
yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
That is another interesting mystery. I certainly am aware of the type of creature you speak of. We have what we refer to as gray renders who work in our backstage, and their job is security. Because, of course, this place is a respite from a harsh and dangerous world. There must be protection against incursion from those who would seek to spoil our place of peace.
Maybe like a weird magical storm?
Hmm.
Mm. No, and
Yeah.
Buster came out of this place and he was small, and there were some kids that took care of him. But he and I bonded over the music from this place, and he's been my friend ever since. And he's fought by our sides, and he heard the music even when he shouldn't. We were in a place where he shouldn't have been able to hear it, and and then he wanted to come here. He followed the music, and we followed him. And that's how we found this place.
Interesting.
No, other way
But
around.
I would like to see him again and give him the chance to go with us if he wants to do that.
Do you think that that is what he wants?
Well, it is very
He
dangerous.
seems to be. Uh, he and I have formed some kind of a bond. It's very hard for me to describe, but um, like
He
I don't
belongs
know.
somewhere else, though.
I,
Yeah.
well, I think that's his choice, Carolina.
Well, his body was seeming a little bit strange,
Yeah.
like he was
I
being
mean, he was
stretched a bit.
fading.
If something
Well,
happens to him outside of where he belongs, he may not be able to come back
no,
in
I
any
would
form.
still like to see him one more time.
Yeah, definitely.
Of
Say
course.
goodbye.
I believe that we can locate a new young Grey Render. I imagine that the music would have taken him backstage to the other Grey Renders. So I am certain that we can locate him for you. But one thing that I will state plainly, all of you are, as I mentioned, completely free to leave as you like, though, as I mentioned, I cannot offer guarantees of your return. However, this is a place that I have worked hard to create as a place of peace, a place of safety, a place of joy and happiness against the cruelty of the outside world. And as a result, it breaks my heart that any would choose to endure that suffering needlessly. And as a result, although I will not take that choice away from you, I would ask that you respect the choice of the others here. If people are here because they have chosen to be here, I would ask that you not attempt to shame them for their decision.
Okay, one sec.
So you really don't know how Buster might have gotten away from this place?
It is something that I will investigate. But the Grey Rinders are, I'm certainly, they certainly exist within my domain, but I do not manage the day to day, if you will.
Hmm.
Oh,
Our
I
behind the
would just
scenes hand, Putreska, is supervises them more directly.
I would just be concerned that something happened, and I know you work hard to protect this place, so there's just been some very strange happenings, and I worry that maybe some of it touched this place.
Hmm. Please elaborate.
Hmm, it's a very long story. Um, well, there was this very odd magical kind of storm that rolled through across the material plane, and it's like something within it ate part of the ship as we were, flying from one place to another. Um, but when we met Buster, it's my understanding that when the storm rolled through this particular town, these children found Buster in a crater after a strange storm like that one that we experienced passed through.
Hmm.
Nedry
So
kind of
it
floats over the book about Denethor.
You're probably going to want to read this one.
maybe he shouldn't. They shouldn't.
Uh, the he kind of waves away the book and says, "I am generally speaking not concerned with the goings on in the outside world because I am of course aware how harsh and cruel a place it is. However, it does concern me that there is a possibility that something might have happened here. I will look into this."
I just thought maybe I should warn you just in case.
I
Because they want to create a lot of chaos and they will go to any lengths, it seems, to do so.
They're unleashing something very terrible.
It strikes me as difficult to believe that something could have permeated our our place here. However, I do not at present have an alternate explanation for how you would have come across a gray render on the material plane.
I don't know if this would make sense, but like we have this tower that is sort of its own little pocket dimension. And during one of these storms, um, the the stuff that was falling from the sky started to eat away at the tower and leak through into our little pocket dimension.
They're like little magic eating snails. They're very gross and
Yeah.
slimy.
And then after the storm passed, they sort of just melted away.
He looks thoughtful, and then he says, "Caraway, would you please consult with Putruska, explain to her what we've been told here, and ask if there's been any indication of leakage or damage of the type that they might be describing, and for that matter, census of the gray renders, and if they have located the one they know as Buster, please do come back with that information." And Caraway does a like a little barrel roll in space and says, "Yes, of course, be right back." She's gone.
I know a little magic that can sense the sort of disruption that this power creates. It's very limited, but I would be happy to share it with you if you don't already know it.
It is a corruption, just so you're aware. So if what you have here is good, it's kind of the opposite.
Disruption, but it appears to be corruption in most people.
I've. What are you asking?
Oh, I'm just offering to share some of my knowledge, if you don't already know, about the disruptive power that this storm and this other thing gives out. If you wanted to check for it.
I am certain that our backstage managers are more than capable of discovering any magical influence that might be affecting our place, although you are very kind to offer.
It's very subtle, so it took me a while to figure it out.
And you should be on the lookout for anyone with kind of like a shark head. I guess they come in different colors. I would kind of describe like what Tanglefoot look like. They tend to cause trouble, chaos, wherever they go. That's their whole mission. So just something to think about. That's all.
You live in dreams and turn them into nightmares. That would be terrible to see it happen here.
I would not stand for any such thing. It would be counter to anathema to the entire purpose of my existence.
That's kind of why I thought maybe we should just warn you just in case.
So I do have one question. Would it be possible for Nedry here to take a couple of the books from this library with him, or will they disappear if he does?
It's kind of a sad smile. It's like, I'm afraid it is the nature of this place that any physical material you attempt to leave with will remain. However, information that you gleaned that resides within you can be retained.
I'm really going to need to study.
And then he kind of goes back over to the chair. It's just flipping through the book again, kind of trying to stare at pages and remember them as best as he can.
I should have taken that speed reading course.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think you are probably dismayed to realize that means like the spellbook paper in the shelf is going to be the same way.
Hmm.
Like it will work as long as you're in here.
In fact, he'll bring out his spell book and try to copy it into there instead.
Yeah. Well, so like, what the there's an element of resource material needed, right? Like that's kind of how
Hmm.
the spell copying into the spell books works, right? Is
Oh,
Well,
like,
yeah.
if you're writing spells, if you're writing normal information, like he also uses
oh
it kind of
yeah,
as a journal, so
if
it's more of
if
the
you're
theory
using
and
your own
ideas and
pen, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
hmm yeah. If you're using entirely materials that you brought with you, that will work.
Yeah, there's a little bit of ink left.
Yeah. And so he sees that and he just says, I would encourage you to not feel like you have to rush this decision because, if I may, the world, the plains, there is so much, and so much of it is harsh and cruel and dangerous and full of sorrow. I do not have the power to change the nature of all of existence. I only have the power to change it here. And so I have done so that there might be at least one place in all of existence where suffering does not need to occur. And while it is true that in the outside it is frequently common to contrive a rationale to justify the suffering, to justify that it must be for a purpose or for a reason, or that good must come from it somehow. But I would argue, here, it just doesn't need to happen at all. The world, the planes out there are too big to be changed. But here,
Maybe, but not everyone can come here.
we do our best.
And I mean, people like us do everything we can to do what you do here out there.
If that is your decision, you are free to make it. Though I worry, you are just choosing to suffer.
Are we going to have lost time when we leave this place? Like, are we going to go out and discover that months have passed since we came here?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, Zinhorn said his parents thought they'd only been here for, a couple minutes, and it was 60 years, 80 years. I mean, when Zinhorn left here, he was 7, and now he's 22. And his parents don't really know how that happened. They didn't even recognize him. I mean, the time is different. So when we leave here, are we going to have to make up for time that we lost?
I am familiar of magical time slippage of the type you speak of. In the early creations of the Feywild, this was an issue they struggled with, but it is not the case here.
Then,
How would you explain?
I mean, I came in here at age 7 and I left here 60 some odd years later and I was still age 7. So time needs to operate differently here.
It is certainly true that time exists differently here, but largely that is a matter of perception. The aphorism, time flies when you're having fun, is an oversimplification. But there is to some extent truth in it. However, what you are describing is not how it should have functioned. I am still unclear on how it was that you came to leave us if it was not of your own volition. It should not have been able to happen.
Well, that's kind of what is, I mean, it's an anomaly, something that you might want to look into further in case something's gone wrong.
Maybe someone is here that doesn't have the best interest of your realm at heart, that is working behind the scenes to create suffering.
Yeah, because it was not easy being
He grew up.
separated from my parents and growing up in an orphanage.
If
And
I
I-
may, it sounds as though the problem is not that you were here, but that you left.
Yes, but if I was happy here, I would have wanted to leave. So how did I get out? I should not, by your rules, have been able to get out.
That's not true.
And I-
If you wanted to leave, you could
I
get
know
out.
of I know of no reason why I would want to leave.
Well, I'll confess, I am likewise stumped at speculating on why mortals would choose to abandon a paradise for a hell. But
Would it be in one of your books? I'm not sure exactly how they contain knowledge, but
incidentally, when you previously asked for a book about the adversary, there was a moment of like hesitation where you didn't end up with a book. And I think what he says is that like this library is capable of gleaning knowledge where it exists. It does not invent it, if you follow me. It is capable of drawing from knowledge which exists elsewhere, but it cannot
So
contrive it from scratch.
I really want to know how to do that spell.
I would
Which
like to know
one?
how I left this place, how I was able to leave this place.
If you were to find out answers to these questions, would you be able to send some kind of communication?
What do you mean?
Well, there are different spells that you can send magical messages, to. I think the big concern here is that everything is all right. And that would really be what we wanted to know. And if there was a problem, we would want to know that also, because we would want to help.
Who would I be communicating with? I'm not
Well,
clear.
probably Zinhorn, he has family here. He would want to know they're all right. So if if you found out the reason why he was able to leave when he was a child, then it's something bad.
It is, as I have said, something that I take responsibility to investigate. And as I have said, you are free to leave. If, however, it will ease your minds, it is not my desire to cause you yet more suffering than you are already choosing for yourselves. So, if it will ease your concerns in any way, I can take you with me backstage. We can discuss with Putreska her investigations, and we can make a determination if there is, in fact, something wrong, or if this is just some kind of a mistake. Would that be acceptable?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and so he asks that all of you. It will be simpler for the transition if we are all in physical contact with one another. The transition backstage is somewhat less smooth than between layers because, of course, it is designed so that the visitors here do not accidentally find themselves there.
We'll
That you
grab
relieve
onto
a-
Zaline.
I think
Did you
we're
leave a
still
folded
tied
piece of paper?
together.
Yeah.
Then you'll leave a folded piece of paper in each of the books that he was trying to cram and kind of put them back on the shelf, and hopefully remember where they are, and then kind of stomp over.
All right, so as you kind of all hold hands,
Yeah.
you find yourselves feeling like you're falling once again. There's a moment where your stomachs kind of lurch with the motion. Everything seems to go black for a moment, and then you're sliding through tangible shadow that you can feel against your skin, and then you are in a large place that is it is completely dark here. Who has dark vision? Remind me. I know Zaleen does. Nedry does, I believe.
Yep.
Is that it?
I do.
Oh, okay, great. Oh, well, that makes sense. Owl. So I think you're in a pitch black room. So those of you with dark vision are seeing only in shades of gray. It's completely black otherwise. And those of you who can see a little bit do see this same strange, like elongated limbs, hunched over humanoid shape, surrounded by all of these other little sort of bulbous faces with little stick arms sticking out of the walls, looking over sort of like an elaborate. I think what immediately would come to mind is like alchemists set, like only made with unfamiliar materials, but it seems like equipment of some kind, and they are working on it. And as the host approaches and says, Putreska, we have some questions about certain details that we would like to investigate in order to assure that an outside influence has not found its way here. And there's a moment where this figure who'd been working on the equipment kind of stops. The head kind of turns all the way around, just like without the rest of the body moving, and just says, Of course there's not, the host. And the host says, Of course there's not. And then she says,
Oh man.
I think perhaps you should go tend to the gray renders for a moment, the host. And he says, Of course, I will tend to the gray renders. And he starts to walk away, and then the head like cranes further around still, looking at Zinhorn, even though Zinhorn, you're only hearing the voice, but the voice just says, Didn't I warn you to stop causing trouble? And that's where we're going to end tonight's session.
Dang it. See, told you. Things seem too good to be true. They always are.
Yeah, always
Knew
too
it.
good to be
The
true.
good parts are great. Sure, the bad parts are bad.
All right. Well, we will find out next week more of what happens here backstage at the Eternal Waltz when we return for more adventure on so many levels.
So many.
So
levels.
many
levels.
portals and books and all that other things.